Actraiser was one of the first Super Nintendo games I got as a kid. To this day, it remains one of my favorites. It has amazing graphics, fantastic gameplay, and one of the best soundtracks on the system, which is saying a lot given how awesome the Super Nintendo sound chip was. What really set this game apart, though, is the way it blended two genres to near perfection. You play as God, trying to save his people from the demons that have taken over the world. The game is divided into two basic gameplay elements. The first has you playing as an angel, fending off demons, building cities, clearing the land, and performing miracles for the citizens. These segments were so much fun and really gave you a reason to care about the citizens and why you were trying to rescue them. Once you got to a certain point, you entered the demon's lairs as God himself. Here, action played out as an awesome hack and slasher that you slaying all the demons to free your people and eventually bring peace back to the land. This is just such an amazing game. It is one of those games I revisit all the time, and it's one of the best examples of a multi-genre game. Today we're going to talk about some modern games that take this concept in a variety of unique directions. It seems most appropriate to me then that I should start with Actraiser Renaissance. This is a complete remake of the original that retains enough to tickle your nostalgia, but also introduces a number of new elements to make it feel like its own thing. Let's start with the platforming. I really like the way they did these levels. All the locales are familiar, but redone to make them feel new. Your character has a host of new moves as well, such as a vertical slash and a ground pound, along with the revamped magic system. I really enjoyed these levels. I played this game immediately after replaying the original, and I just think they did a fantastic job of keeping the spirit of the platforming levels intact. The bosses also feel new yet familiar. I gotta make a special shout out to the soundtrack as well. You could play with the classic soundtrack, but the remix stuff here is incredible and does a great job of making an already awesome soundtrack even better. I can't imagine anyone who loved the original not loving the platforming stages. Whether or not you enjoy this game will come down to how you feel about the new simulation elements. These are greatly expanded from the first game. In the original, the playtime between both modes is fairly well balanced. In this one, you will spend a good 2 hours on average in each simulation world. The premise starts out the same. You clear the land of things like rocks and swamps using miracles, guide your people into monster lairs, and help them establish a civilization. But they've added a number of new elements and really fleshed out the stories of each world. The basic story elements would stay the same. So for example, in Bloodpool, you still meet the young boy named Teddy and his parents dealing with him growing up and becoming his own man. It is just much more fleshed out and I really enjoyed it. I'm not usually a fan of long stories in games, so maybe my nostalgia kicked in here, but I thought the stories were really good and took the simple concept of the original and fleshed them out in a substantial way. Each world also introduces you to a unique hero who eventually reveals themselves to be a legendary hero of light as their faith in you gets restored. Not only are they here to flesh out the story, but they also pivotal in the new real-time strategy or tower defense segments. In these segments, you build towers to defend your settlement, then control heroes and miracles to ward off the enemies. I personally really enjoyed these, but they are new and maybe not for everyone. I think a lot of whether or not you like this game hinges on your feelings on these segments. They also added little monster lair levels. In the original game, you may remember the citizens sealed each lair. Here you descend down and fight off the monsters before the lair is sealed. These segments are short and nothing spectacular. They break up the simulation gameplay but don't really add too much as they are generally pretty short, straightforward, and easy. Overall, I loved this game, but not at first. In fact, I was ready to give up on the game after about 2 hours or so. The only reason I didn't was because my recording didn't work. So I had to play one more time to capture some footage for this video. That one more time turned into a 7-hour play session, and then I was completely addicted. My initial turnoff was due to the huge emphasis on the simulation segments. I wound up really liking them. But if you are a fan of the original, just know the gameplay here is different than what you may expect. And if you want something more in line with the traditional Actraiser experience with a blasphemous twist, maybe try out our next game. Smelter is a game that is heavily inspired by Actraiser and serves as kind of a spiritual successor to that franchise, combining the unique genre mixing of the first game with the insane challenge of the second game. Like its inspiration, play takes place in two distinct styles. Here you're playing as a demon who has merged with Eve after Adam ate the forbidden apple. She wants to find him and he promises to help if he could just borrow her body. Like to fight enemies with, not in a creepy Jeffrey Epstein kind of way. This little flying demon wants to rebuild his empire, and so half the game takes place much like Actraiser, an overhead empire building style. Just like the little angel from that game, you could fly around, shoot enemies, only shooting is controlled with a twin stick style method. Here you clear land and build various structures, houses where your residents all spawn, apple towers which they need for food, and some offensive towers that your army is going to need to fight the enemy threats that attack your land. I enjoyed these sections. They typically consist of you flying around building up a whole host of defenses, and then trying to unlock some area that is being protected by your enemies. You'll have to fight some pretty large scale battles to clear the land, and once you do, you can enter the side-scrolling levels. These are simply fantastic. As you progress, you unlock a variety of upgrades, and there are 3 different elements you can control. Not only do they have different attacks, but they also have different movement options, which you're going to need to manage to overcome all of the challenges. It's all really well done and really difficult. Some of these levels are insanely hard, and while you do get checkpoints and infinite lives, sometimes these checkpoints are not that close. Many times a single one of these levels will take me about 45 minutes to an hour to beat, and there are no mid-level saves, so if you exit out of the game, you have to restart the whole level. Not really a big deal if you're playing on something like the Switch, where you can just put it on sleep mode, but just something to be aware of if that is not an option for you. There are also secrets in every level, usually locked behind some totally insane platforming challenges. I like the way the scrolling and simulation elements play off each other. Collecting the secrets in the side-scrolling levels allow you to access upgrades in the simulation levels, which then makes your character more powerful for the side-scrolling levels. It's all just really well done, and if you love Actraiser as much as I do, definitely give this game a shot. Just be prepared for an insanely difficult but rewarding experience. toodee and topdee is an absolutely brilliant game and just shows how unbelievably cool a genre mash could be when done correctly. There is a god that has created several different planets. They're all held together by an orbiting a semicolon. The semicolon gets stolen and the words all mashed together. You control 2 characters at the same time. The first is named toodee. When you play as him, controls like a standard side scroller. You could jump and that's about it. By hitting a button, you switch to topdee. Playing as him has you playing from a top-down perspective, and his button is used to move boxes. On its surface, it is really simple. You will know the controls and how the game works in a matter of minutes. It is really intuitive, and it always works exactly how you want it to. But simple controls do not make a simple game. This is a game with devilishly difficult puzzles. It has you constantly switching between the 2 characters in really creative ways. An example of a simple puzzle would be you jump as toodee, swap to the other character, move a box under your feet, swap back so you can now reach a higher area. You do stuff like that a lot, but there is just so much more here. Some of these levels had me just staring blankly at the screen for an hour before I was able to piece together what to do next. As hard as they are, they're also really intuitive. Like when it finally clicks, you think, oh, I'm going to try this, and it works. It is just such a brilliant concept executed to absolute perfection. And although I was tempted to look a walkthrough several times, I only had to once because I knew I eventually would be able to figure it out, even if I did have to take occasional breaks because my brain started to hurt. There are 5 worlds with 20 levels each except for the last world, and they all end in a boss fight. These boss fights were just absolutely brilliant. I could pick any one of them to gush about, but I just really enjoyed the 3rd boss here. There is a laser locked behind the gate. Its keys are on platforms and can only be collected by toodee, but they are out of his reach. You switch to topdee and the boss tries to crush you with his body and his hands. The trick is to lure him in order to form a bridge that toodee could use to collect the keys. Do that and the laser zaps the boss, dealing damage. These were all just so much fun to figure out and really creative. I just absolutely love this game. It is so innovative and so perfectly executed. If you're remotely into puzzle games, this is an absolute must play, as it's unlike anything else out there. Power Rangers Readers Rewind is a beat 'em up based on the popular show that combines some extra genres to mix things up a little bit. Most of the game's levels take place as standard beat 'em up. The graphics here are amazing and really do a great job of capturing the feel of the show. Gameplay is fun too. It's not as deep as something like Streets of Rage 4, but what is here is fast and very arcadey. You have the basic tropes you'd expect, your standard combo, grabs and throws. You get a dodge roll that you can cancel out into an attack like what you did in Shredder's Revenge. Each character also has a dive kick, a stomp, and a rising Shoryuken style move. I really enjoyed these sections. It's the kind of game that would have felt right at home sitting next to Ninja Turtles or The Simpsons in a 90s arcade. They also added in a few other kinds of games to spice things up. You get a few of these shooter levels. They kind of play something like a cross between a gallery shooter and Panzer Dragoon. You run through the levels, shoot everything that moves, you get a dodge roll, and there's even some platforming. I absolutely love these levels, and honestly, I'd be okay with playing an entire game in this style. The gallery shooter is kind of a forgotten genre and one of my favorites. This is the kind of style that updates that genre in a really cool way. You get some biker levels as well. These were fun and have you speeding through the city streets, dodging obstacles and shooting things. Finally, you get the big bosses where you take on the form of the Megazord to fight them. This is like kind of a punch-out light kind of thing. You have to dodge projectiles and melee attacks while closing the distance and eventually just punch them in the face. These were fun, but definitely not as much fun as the other sections. I didn't play this game at release. I waited for the physical, which was all the updates on the cartridge. I was a little leery though, because the reviews of this game were not glowing. After playing it, I honestly just don't understand why. I absolutely love this game from start to finish, and this is coming from someone who never watched the Power Rangers as a kid. The beat-em-up action was fast and fun, and I think the different genres they introduced set it apart from other games like this. All of the other gameplay styles are really well implemented and fun to play. I do see the criticism that says that all the Rangers kind of play the same. That's valid. You do not have the character diversity here like you do in something like Double Dragon Gaiden. That aside, this is still a really fun game. I think it took me just under 2 hours or so to run through, but it is the kind of game that I will go back to, and a good example of a genre mashup doing something to set a game apart from its peers. The Plucky Squire is an adorable game with a storybook aesthetic that seamlessly blends various playstyles to create a really captivating and endearing experience. You play as Jock, the hero of a child's story who does not know that he is in a storybook. The main bad guy, Humgrum, figures it out and uses his magic to potentially change the story in his favor. You then learn the truth and try to restore order to the tale. Play starts out in an overhead perspective, very similar to The Legend of Zelda. You explore the pages of the book like you would the overworld in that game. At certain points, play switches to a more traditional 2D platformer. Pretty early on, you get the ability to jump out of the book. Once you are out of its pages and into the real world, the game then takes on a 3D platformer style of play that has your adorable little character traversing a real world desk. The way it seamlessly transitions these three styles is really impressive. Also, when you're in the real world, you could pick up the storybook to manipulate the pages and change the world in the book. The concept here is executed brilliantly. They do a fantastic job of bringing this story to life. You get to change the words on the pages, which then changes things in the story world, and there are a ton of cool mini games to play that pay homage to all different classics. The game did receive criticism for being on the easy side. I understand that this is definitely not a difficult game, but it is unbelievably charming. Easily one of the most charming games I have ever played. It's just so adorable. The characters are very endearing, and the gimmick of being in a storybook is brilliant. My 4-year-old daughter sat on my lap as I played through this entire 12 or so hour adventure. She was so engrossed in it, and I would read the dialogue to her as if I was reading from an actual book. It honestly was a really amazing experience, and I think it is one that any parent of a young child could relate to. But even taking that out of it, the game stands on its own as a really unique experience. This is not a game that's going to challenge or frustrate you. It's just a nice, relaxing, adorable adventure that blends genres in a really unique way to produce a game unlike anything else I've ever played.